First of all, it is very much an honor to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I never knew when I shot off that little email that it would translate into this. Actually, when I first got the book, Sacred Contracts, I was in a massage class, and I'm a rolfer, structural integrator, and in this class, I respected everyone in the class, but it's tough for me I used to make fun of a lot of energy work. I've been a massage therapist for about 13 years now, and it just all seemed, a lot of it seemed kind of hippie woo-woo, but the people that I was in this class with were brilliant healers. And so I thought, with these brilliant healers that are here, I want to know what you're studying. I want to know, because I want to jump across a lot of the fluffy stuff that'll irritate me. And so I asked for a reading list. And the next day I only had one person respond, and they came up to me and they gave me Anatomy of the Spirit. And I looked at it and I thought, what is this hippie crap? But I said thank you, and I went home. And then the next morning I got up and I had my morning coffee, and I wanted to read, and it's my favorite time of the day. And my wife went off to work, and so I was sitting down, and then that pull in the heart to where it's like, well, you asked for a book and you got it. And I didn't want to look at that because I have so many other books that I want to read that I love, and I'm like, I got to crack it open and give it a shot. And then, so I paid 1, 2, 3 pages in, and I thought, wow, this is actually good. And it helped the fact that New York Times bestseller was on the cover, and I was like, all these people can't be wrong. But I realized it was my judgment that was limiting me and limiting me to receive. And so even the email that I wrote was, part of it was like, hey, I didn't say this in the email, but I'm sorry that this is the way I took this connection, and it wasn't trying to get anything. It was just that pull, that intuitive pull to say, hey, you're an awesome human being, and you're doing great work in the world, and I feel like I am too, and so keep on rocking in the free world. And then at the end of the email I said, and I put the TED Talk in there, not so she would watch my TED Talk, but I didn't want her to think that I was weird. And it's like, hey, I'm a normal guy, I did a TED Talk, you can look at it. And so the red flags don't start flying because I'm reaching out. And I just said, I really hope that someday our paths will cross. 6 months later, our paths crossed, and now we're here. So earlier today, I was wondering where I was going to start in what I shared with you. And based on a conversation, I realized I needed to rewind the story. And it was the moment that I changed my judgment, and then I consider it my spiritual birthday. June 6, 2009. And if anyone wants to check up on me on my Facebook, I have a little post on that day, Facebook memories, 5 years ago from that day. I just reposted it. I was walking down Santa Monica, and I had a hot date that night. I went and got my hair cut, get my hair did, because it's my second date. I had a couple friends coming over that were going to check out this girl that I was going out with. And I was talking to the hairdresser, and I was like, yeah, and they do their thing where so what do you think of her? And I was like, oh, she's cool, she's smart, she put herself through college, Ivy League educated, she did it herself, so there's a lot of respect there. She's answered a few questions a little bit off. It seems like she might have a little bit of a dark side, but that might be cool, I don't know. I'll keep a pulse on it, but so we were talking, and after I got my hair cut, they were redoing the pipes in my building. And so I needed to obviously take a shower. I didn't want all the scratchies all night, so I called up my old GM at the spa I used to work at Burke Williams, Santa Monica. A long time ago I worked there, but I was still buddies with him. I was like, hey, can I use a shower? And he's like, sure. And I was like, I know people aren't supposed to go on a Friday, and I'll just slip in and slip in. Yeah, it's fine. I was coming out of Burke Williams, walking down the street, and up walks this Indian dude, turbanator, burgundy turban, double-breasted suit in June, and it's hot. Everyone else is in flip-flops and shorts, and this dude's way out of place. And I'm a writer, so I like weird stuff. And we lock eyes as we pass. And then I feel this tap on my elbow. And I turn around, and he's like, "Excuse me, may I talk to you?" "Sure." "May I ask you a few questions?" "Sure." "What's up, dude?" And he wrote on a piece of paper, a little Post-it note. He's like, "1 second, please." And he folded it up and put it in my hand, and he covered my hand. "How old are you?" And no one ever guesses my age right. I was born in 75. I'm 41 right now. So I tell him my age. "How many brothers and sisters do you have?" I grew up in a foster home. I'm not a foster kid. But I was like, I have 38 foster sisters and 11 foster brothers. Guess that one. And he's like, no. How many do you claim? I was like, well, I have one sister, no brothers. "What is your favorite color?" And don't say blue, everyone says blue. I was like, I was going to say blue. Green. "Do you have anyone negative in your life?" And I said, "No." "Are you sure?" "Yeah." "Are you positive?" I was like, "Yeah, listen, dude, I see what you're trying to pull here. I pride myself on cutting negative people out of my life, so you're not going to win this battle. I already was writing a book about my dad. That was negative. Changed that all up. Next try." And he was like, "Please, this is very important." And his response to me, just being very warm and warning, I said, "Oh," then I clicked in my mind that moment that I said to the hairdresser, "Oh, this girl might have a little bit of a dark side." I said, "You know what? Maybe this girl. I'm going on a second date tonight. Maybe it's her." She goes, "What is her name?" "Kim." "Out of these 4 flowers, which would you choose? Roses, tulips, lilies, or carnations?" I was like, oh gosh, I don't care. I'm a guy. I don't care about flowers. Kim said she liked fresh lilies. Lilies, good enough. "Please open the piece of paper, and if the answers that you see that I've given you are similar to the answers you've told me, would you listen to me?" "Yeah, whatever." And I opened the piece of paper, and in that moment, my life changed. Everything I made fun of. This room I would have made fun of. What you're studying I would have made fun of. What I believe now I would have made fun of. It said 1975, B0, S for sisters, 1, green, Kim, lilies. He said, "I am not a psychic. I'm not a trickster. I read energy. What I just did for you is nothing. It's nothing. I did it for you so you would listen to me." And then he started throwing up his hands in the air, saying, "You do not exist. You cannot exist." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I cannot exist. You can exist. You're the one that don't fit into my cosmology, dude." And he said, "I've studied this my whole life. You vibrate at a certain frequency. And there's only one way to do that. And it's through something you have never done." And it's the only moment he was pissed off at me. I was like, "What have I never done?" He said, "You have never meditated." Like, right again. And I was like, "What do you have to say to me?" He said, "Get away from her. Have nothing to do with her. She will destroy you." Like, thanks, man. "You want to go out for coffee?" So I took him out for coffee. He taught me how to meditate. And at the end of the time, he said, "I would be curious to find what would happen with a person like you if you started meditating." Now, through his guidance, I learned that massage therapy is actually kind of a form of meditation. So I believe that, and I've done like 10, 15,000 hours of body work. So I don't think there's anything special about me. I think that that was something that he picked up. And after that time, I started meditating. And I don't know where you all are. I'm expecting you guys are all meditating. I hope you are. But that is the work. And it's the work that I continue to do. I've never seen this guy again. 1 hour. But part of me also wanted to share with you, like, as energy workers, as people that put yourself out there, I'm a person that was transformed in less than an hour by a stranger who went out on a limb, who challenged me to meditate. In my meditation, he just said, take a shower, shave, go to the bathroom, sit down, sit in the position, breathe, tongue in the roof of the mouth, that's it. Everything else, you'll learn from there. How I understand it, and this was the beginning of my journey, it's like a projector projecting this image on a wall. You know those old school projectors that you have light that comes through and they have a clear, and they have writing on it, and one piece of paper can block all the light out? It was like I was looking at that top sheet of paper, and it was Tim Plummer, was it the first name? I destroyed that guy in high school. And in my meditation, I'm sitting down and that name keeps coming up over and over again. And I was ashamed of what I did to him. And it was like that movie, Billy Madison, where he like starts to call these people with the 9th step and the 12-step program. Hey, remember me? Yeah. I'm really sorry I did that to you. And I started making amends, and it was like there's these psychological hooks, spiritual hooks that are coming out of me each time I did it, and I felt it, and it just felt different. And sometimes it wasn't a bad thing. It was Roya. I love Roya. She came to mind. Reach out to her. So I just call and say, hey, I just want to let you know you're awesome, and I was thinking about you. You're on my heart, and I hope you're doing well today. And then they would call back and say, how did you know? I was going through this worst experience. How did you know? I'm like, I don't know. And this doesn't make sense to me, and I'm freaked out. I didn't say anything. Just like, oh, well, you know, played it off. But that's how everything started turning for me. I was the managing partner, became the managing partner in a post-surgical recovery facility. I worked with all the top plastic and orthopedic surgeons in Beverly Hills. And through my process of breaking patterns of generational dysfunction and repatterning the mind, I go through it in my book of how my father and I dealt with this, but I use this in a self-serving way. Everything was about me. And I got to run a company that I had no business running, worked with the director of plastics for Cedars, which made me feel really cool, and all these 90210 doctors. And in my meditation, it was said, this is all going to be taken away from you. And it's all a fraud. And your friend is going to not pay you. And you have to finish your word 1 year. I was in for 8 months when I figured this out. And in 4 months later, and you'll give it up, and you have to forgive her and walk away. And for that next 4 months, I worked as hard as I could. Why? Because every time I removed one of those hooks, I became a little more free. And a little more free. And I was more excited with the feeling that was going on inside to do that work, to not feel worthless, to not feel this split identity, to start coming together to where I wasn't deceiving myself anymore or deceiving other people, trying to put this image up. And even after, I wrote a great talk for you, and I don't know how much of it I'm going to use, because even before when I came here, it was hard for me to separate when we were in the back, like, I'm a people pleaser. I'm trying to please you. I'm trying to please Carolyn. I'm trying to make my wife proud. So sometimes I worked on this so hard, but it's what I thought you would accept me with, and I realized, great, I don't even know what I should say now. And so right now, I am going in some ways into my talk, and in some ways I'm letting my heart guide me. Because I feel like that's a better judge of what you need. and what I need to say. I was looking in the mirror. This was the day, or moments after I separated from my business partner. And I told her, I said, I know you're not going to pay me, and it's fine. This started in friendship, and it will end in friendship. Whether it ends our friendship or not, it's up to you. But I'm moving another course. And I looked into the mirror, and I had already given 1 year to my friend with this business, and I got nothing from it. And I was able to live and work 60 hours, 70 hours a week. So I knew I could do that. Now, I don't share this part of my life with people because it's a spiritual part and they don't understand it. And that's what's so beautiful, being able to talk to you, because you're more spiritually grounded and minded than any group of people I've ever come in contact with. So it truly is an honor to talk to you right now. I was staring in the mirror. I'm like, James, what have you ever done? And it was this conversation between my mind, my heart, my body, my soul, my spirit. And it was as if they were communicating together. And it's like my spirit, my future is talking to my past, and nostalgia, like, yeah, what have you done? You say you know how to repattern the mind? You wrote this book? Where's the proof? You just did it for yourself. Sure, I worked on this TV show with massage, and I had this job that was a fraud, but it looked cool. But what have you ever done to throw down? Now, the one thing that I was still proud of is the fact that I came to Los Angeles. I dedicated 10 years to write that book. And I moved to LA with nothing. And in 10 years, the poor country boy was proud of himself. But at the end, everything I'd ever done was for me. And I had nice clothes. So the poor kid that grew up with secondhand clothes, that always felt like a second-rate citizen, finally had Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, Cavalli suits. Now, I didn't tell people that I got it at a secondhand high-end store and I got it for pennies on the dollar. But all those fabrics and labels protected me. It was like socially acceptable battle armor to engage in business. And I felt like a doll every day when I was getting ready. So I thought, what's the greatest thing I can do? And I thought, well, the only unique thing that is unique about me is the choices that I've made and the work that I've done into putting into mental repatterning. And so I thought, either put up or shut up. You need to do the greatest thing you can imagine. And so the greatest thing I could imagine, and at that point, I decided, I'm going to do the greatest thing I could imagine to repattern my mind. It is so great, I haven't imagined it yet. And that's where I began. I had no idea. I just was going to repattern my mind, whatever it took. I was going to transform into a new human being. My whole life, growing up, I'd repatterned my mind 3 different times. So this process wasn't strange for me. The first time I repatterned my mind, I was a kid. And my father taught me. And he didn't teach me by sitting me on his knee and, son, this is the philosophy of how to repattern the mind and how the brain works. And how many of you have a dad that went through the school of hard knocks? Yeah. Tough thing about that, the way those dads teach, through knocks. They knock your head up, knock yourself upside the head. So, for me, growing up, I hated my dad. He never let me be a kid. I never got to play. If I was playing, I was a lazy, worthless, and kids are supposed to play. I would work my hardest to try and please him. It was never possible. He would tell me to do something, scream at me, and he wouldn't teach me. And I couldn't read his mind, and then he'd whip me. And I felt worthless. And I had PTSD. And so the list of anger, depression, guilt, those were all there. Grew up in a foster home, watched my dad be so nice to all these other kids. And the whole community thought he was the greatest. He was a minister. And I was asked a while ago, Carolyn asked me, what was it that you were so afraid of that you would give everything away? That you would need to do this? And I couldn't give the answer at that moment, but it took a while to find it out. I was afraid to be a fraud like my father. I would go to church, and on the way to church, he would be screaming at me, hit me. I would have to paste a smile on my face, carry my Bible in, have the Christian way. Then on the way home, I got it again. I had to keep that image up just to protect myself. I had to keep that image up to protect even from my siblings. They were all street kids. Half of my sisters were prostitutes, had pimps. One of my sisters had split personalities. So intensity, going around the country, not hard. Not comparison with how I grew up. When I was 11, I tried to take my life. And I played Russian roulette, and the first chapter of my book goes through that experience, so I'm not going to talk about it any more than what I have. But I told my father a couple weeks later. We were on vacation, going to Concord, California. We were at my uncle's house, and we were in a safe place, and so I knew that I could actually talk to him. And I pulled him outside, and I said, "Dad, I want to let you know I need to apologize because I touched one of your guns, and I know that's the worst thing we could do in the home." But I explained to him what I did. And he looked at me and he's like, "Why in the world would you do that?" And I said, "Because your world would be better off without me." He said, "Son, don't you know I love you?" No. You just tell me how worthless I am and how I get in everyone's way. I just thought everyone would be better if I was dead. The next day, that night, he didn't say anything. My dad always has a quick remark, and he's a funny dude. He just held me for the first time. Next morning, he came to me and he said, "Son, for the 11 years that I stole out of your childhood, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I don't know what it's going to take, how it's going to change, but I don't know how to be a good man. I don't know how to be a father. Nobody ever taught me, but maybe we can learn together." A little while later, and he approached me, and he started getting close, and I backed away in fear, because I knew at any given minute that fist would fly. And he realized that I didn't believe him, and he's like, "Son, what's one thing I can do to let you know that I'm going to do this, whatever it takes?" And I said, "Dad, you'll never do it." He said, "Try me." I said, "Okay. I never, ever want to work with you, for you, or around you ever again for the rest of my life." And it wasn't because I didn't like work. I love work. I love to serve. It's I didn't work around him, because when I was around him, I was stupid, slow, and worthless. And it would trigger that PTSD, anger, and I didn't know how to let it go. And I just didn't want to feel that. And he said, "Okay, son, you never have to work with me again." My mom would ask me to do whatever I had to do, and if he was doing something, I never had to be around him. And then the next week he came to me and he said, "Son, can I help you with anything?" I said, "Yeah, sure. We're making a tree fort. Can you help build that?" He's like, "Yeah, I know how to make a tree fort." So he came and helped us. And the next week he came to me and he's like, "Son, how did I do last week? Give me a grade. A, B, C, D, F. If I'm doing something good, I want to keep doing it good. And if I'm doing something bad, then I want to stop. And I figure you can tell me quicker than anyone." And I said, okay, Dad, you got a B. And instantly I was like, oh my gosh, I gave the wrong answer. Because his face started contorting. But instead of being red with anger, tears streamed down his face. I said, Dad, what's wrong? He said, nothing's wrong. He said, I've been getting a lot of low grades for a long time. I'm happy with a B. Every week from that moment, from when that happened to when I graduated from high school, my dad would come to me and he would ask me for a grade. So in a day and age where men don't know how to connect with their emotions, I'm fluent. And it has nothing to do with me being special. It's because I had practice. And when you have a child with no intrinsic self-worth, then all of a sudden, the image of God usually is first created by your dad, and you project that on the divine. This person closest to God, going from I have no value to where whatever was going on in my heart would actually change him and change his actions and behaviors. I went from feeling worthless to feeling priceless. That was the first transition in my mind, repatterning as, oh my gosh, I'm not worthless, I'm priceless, and it's easy to mix them up because there's no actual value attached. The next time was when I went off to college, and I was going off to college, went on this trip to Mexico, and all of my friends, well, a lot of my friends from high school, they went to Cabo and got drunk, and I wanted to please my family. I went on this missions trip, and we were there and helped out an orphanage, and we were there for 6 weeks. 3 days before we finished, we got to rent mopeds and we were going on the island of Cozumel. And so we got to just hang out and have fun. And I was going around the island, and my buddy was about, from me to the speaker, and going about 45, and he drifted over, and he hit a curb, and he flipped up and he hit a cement pole, going about 45. I pulled off, I came, gave him first aid, and he died in my arms. And it broke me. I was furious, and I was pissed off at God, pissed off at the world. I'd lived my whole life as a people pleaser. And I was like, you know what? No more. I was about to go to college, and I was like, I'm going to be myself so much that I hope you don't like me for being me, that I have an honest excuse not to like you. And I went off to college with this attitude. I was like, oh my gosh, people like me more. They didn't like this projected image, this pasted on Christian smile, but the real me. And before that moment, I'd never tried out for a drama team, a sports program, a leadership position, and ever in my life. And someone said this one thing that resonated in my mind: all limitations are self-imposed. And I kept thinking about this over and over. All limitations are self-imposed. All limitations are self-imposed. I was like, you know what? I'm going to test this. So I decided the biggest thing I could try for was student body president. So I ran for student body president. And I won. It was the biggest landslide in the history. And so this kid that was wondering, and it's not like I felt priceless, I was testing that priceless feeling, testing the world, putting it out there. But I had served so many people and connected that I didn't realize, I had no idea how the world worked. The next step, but this was all coming together, that it will make sense of why I did this project. When I moved to LA, so my dad and I spoke to a church service, we gave our story, and it resonated beyond what I thought was possible. And so I promised I would write this book. I didn't know how to write. I was a C English student. Because my internal thoughts and feelings, how could I ever write something worthwhile if I had no intrinsic self-worth? And so I decided, you know what? In 10 years, I'll be able to figure it out. And if I don't, I'm just going to write the best thing I can in 10 years and call it a day. So I moved to Los Angeles, didn't know a soul. I knew I needed to move there because I was happier. I was actually living in my car on top of the Sony lot. I got a part-time gig, at Stage 26, the TV show Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Sybil Shepherd hosted it. And part of the time I was working for Alaska Airlines for a little bit, and so I'd fly back to Washington, close up my life there. When I was in LA, I didn't have a place to stay, so I knew I needed to move to LA because I was happier living in my car on top of the Sony lot than I was in a fully furnished house back in Washington. And all the production staff was like, wow, look at this young PA, this guy that's hustling, that's showing up an hour before call time. His call time's at 8 o'clock, he's here at 7. I'm thinking, yeah, you don't really realize this, but at about 6:37, if you're sleeping in your car, the sun comes up and it gets that uncomfortable warm, so where it's like too cold to roll your windows down, but too hot to stay in a muggy car. And I had to go and wash up and get a spit bath and clean myself so I didn't stink for the day, and brush my teeth, and they had fresh breakfast there with craft services. So it wasn't exactly what they thought, but I'm a country boy. I'm used to roughing it. And I was sleeping out on the stars, and they had security, so I was safe on this lot. And gradually I carved out an existence, went from there, got a place. Every once in a while I'd be invited to a party in Hollywood, and I'd always felt like other people were better than me, especially living in your car. Holy cow. Like, it couldn't have a date. Like, hey, you want to come back to my place? No. But every once in a while someone would say, hey, I have this holiday party, come here, and when you're nice, that happens. And I didn't want to be the clingy friend that was never leaving my friend that invited me aside, so I would, after hanging out with them, I would go talk to the host, and it seemed like all the friends were helping the host out, saying, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? So I'd ask the host, and they're like, no, go mix and mingle. And actually, I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. And after I would maybe pick up some dishes or do this or that, then it was, hey, I just want to let you know that you're always invited back to my place. So when I started, instead of feeling like these people that had homes and lives and worlds were better than me, started connecting them on a heart level just through service. All three of these experiences taught me these 10 different steps. And I still think they're relevant, and I still have to work through them, and you'll understand at the end what I mean. The first step is you have to decide to change. You have to say, this is different. Pick a date. Pick a moment. My dad picked it with finding out about my suicide. After Jason's death, I picked it. It was in defiance. Also, to write my book, I'm going to go do that. Pick a relationship to change. It could be any relationship. Father, son, co-workers. I chose the relationship with myself. I didn't want to have the anxiety and PTSD that had plagued me my whole life. And it was like, you know what? I'm either going to have a life without this, or I will die trying. And it's worth my life to figure it out, what life would be like on the other side, without fear, without the limitations, without all this programming that wasn't accurate, that I needed to flush out and purge from my life. And all of these things that were hooked inside of me was also hooked inside of all the things I hid behind. And several people have asked me, so are you saying that I need to give everything away in order to have this experience? No, I did. However, I do know if you want to have this transformation, you'll have to do probably the most difficult thing you've ever imagined. And it'll be the coolest journey you could ever take. But you have to take it. I don't know where it'll go, but this was my journey. You pick the relationship. Step 3, list how you're going to change. My dad listed it for me to where I'm not going to beat my son anymore. I'm going to get to know who he is. I can't make him work around me. Then also be yourself. Find out what you like. That's what I did when I went to college. Just started to allow myself to explore, to blossom, change the environment. My dad changed when he left when he was mad. I changed when I moved to college. And all of these things are elements of what I've never told anyone about what I was thinking of, how I had to construct a journey that would change who I was as a person. Step 5, ask, how can I help? Serve. Provide time. How can I provide value? Step 6, assume you don't know. Turn off your mind. Your mind's going to steer you the wrong direction. You're going to think something and you're going to commit to it, and then it's going to take you down a wrong path. Step 7, assess the situation. How did I do? Get a grade. Get some feedback. So step 8, get feedback. Absorb it. Don't speak. Meditate on it. Step 9, apply the useful bits. Get the earlier insight. Apply them. Just like a sailboat tacking with what my dad did every week. It wasn't like it was A's. Even going around here, I have a friend in the front row, Cherie. When I went around the country, Utah, she's who I served in Utah. I couldn't find a Mormon family in Utah. Who can't find Mormons in Utah? This guy. And she was my friend that was helping me. In fact, I had a Mormon friend from Washington State when I was traveling say, "You're not going to serve a Mormon?" I was like, "Oh, don't even go there. I have been trying for months." And finally, I just said to Cherie, "Hey, can I serve you? Because it ain't working out with anyone else." And it turned out to be what should have been. But then step 10, rinse and repeat. Sometimes the advice that you get, there's always a nugget in there that you could use. There's always something, some element of guidance. But there's also a lot of things that you can't use. And you have to have your intuition of how to wash that off. Fast forward back to that mirror. Standing in front of that mirror, I had 1 year of bad programming in my mind with the most deceptive, brilliantly cunning, manipulative human being I've ever come in contact with. My business partner. I knew that was the template that was on me, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble as a human being because this is what I allowed in my life. And I don't know what you all are allowing in your life, but I know odds are there's some of you that are allowing this type of personality and relationship to stay in your orbit, and it is affecting you. It affected me. I don't know how it can't affect you. And I'm like, I need to change this. I believe I know how to repattern the human mind, so I have to throw down. I can't be like my father. I can't be a fraud. And I've studied religion my whole life. I've studied the journey of how to transform, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what it is. There's a story of the rich young ruler. I don't know if you know it. The rich young ruler went to Jesus and said, "What must I do to enter the kingdom of heaven?" He says, "Follow the laws of the prophets." The rich young ruler says, "Did that. Done it since I was a kid." He says, "All right, big guy. Give everything away. Sell all you have, give the money to the poor, and follow me. Take this journey." And the rich young ruler hung his head because he had many things. I finally was at a place that I was proud of myself. I finally had money, a world. I wasn't the guy living in my car. I wasn't all these places that I was embarrassed of. And it's like, all right, you don't want to be a fraud? You think you know, then do it. And for me, that's what it took. The theory is simple. If you spend a significant amount of time serving another person, when intense situations occur, instead of your mind freaking out and being limited by fear and PTSD and triggering that fight or flight survival, your mind relaxes and you reconnect to those that you served. New Year's Eve. I had reached this point of happiness. I decided I wanted to do this, but I wanted to give myself 1 month to decide. As the ball was dropping on New Year's Eve, I was at a house party in Long Beach, and it was 10, 9, 8, the champagne was poured. I had my then girlfriend, that didn't work out because I had my wife back there. 3, 2, 1, confetti. May all acquaintance be forgot. And I turned to my then girlfriend and I said, I'm going to give everything away and go around the country serving people. And she said, she was expecting a proposal. She was very disappointed. And that was how my journey began. But I picked a moment, picked a date. I also started playing with dates, and this is just a fun thing to consider. On February 18th, now Purim is a Jewish holiday every year, but every 4 years, they celebrate to where they give their gifts to their friends. So I had all my friends come together on the 18th of February, and I just Googled it, like, what's the most significant date coming up? I was like, oh, that's cool, it kind of fits. So I told all my friends on that date, make a list of what you like. Because I didn't want them to just come to my party and not know what was going on. But then on April Fool's Day, it was there. Now I'm from the Northwest, and there's what's called a potlatch ceremony. Now everyone knows what potluck is. Bring food, share it. A potlatch is where a tribe member becomes an elder. And they give all their possessions to their tribe so that their tribe can trust them with what they have to say, because they have no ulterior motive. And I was like, I want to experience that. And now in our culture, it doesn't seem like there's, a lot of cool cultures, like the Spartans I studied and Native Americans, and they have this boy becoming a man journey. And we don't have it. Nowadays, it's like, you got money in your pocket, you're right. And there's an incongruence there because a lot of deception and bad choices could come with that. And I wanted to have that experience. Because all of my possessions, each of them these were things that I hid behind. These were things that made me feel more than other people. Because I have a nice place by the beach. So that's why my flat screen TV, my PlayStation, my art, all the pieces that I thought made me sophisticated. Each time someone said, oh, I like that, I said, you know what? I want you to have it. I felt one of those hooks come out of me. Because that's what possessions were for me. The possessions owned me. And I was a hoarder. I'd stayed in my place for 8 years. And I would have never left because I had rent control. And it's hard to get rent control by the beach. And so each of these possessions, I started feeling lighter and lighter. And I even had some of my friends, the religious friends I would have agreed with the most, were the most stingy. And it surprised me. Because I've known these people my whole life, and they're like, give me this, give me this, give me this. And it made other people really upset. But for me, it was a great moment of detachment because it's all going anyway. The sooner you take it, the better for me, because I'm feeling better. And all the anger was for other people, and it was just very curious to experience death in perfect health, to be able to see how the fight is happening over things that now, that you, like 2 months ago, you would have given your life to protect, and right now, you can't wait till other people take it. I started the process when I was 11 to where I was staring death in the face. And it was through feeling worthless. I wanted the experience of staring death in the face and feel priceless. And stare it down and keep going. And find out who the man I am. Because my father, the man my father is, my father forbid me to take this journey. He said, I will not allow it. I forbid you. I said, Dad, you hadn't paid for anything for over a decade for me. You can't forbid me. He's like, well, I tried. Fair play. This is how my journey was born. I would give myself 1 year to travel all 50 states, serving a family in each state, to show them what little I could of how to repattern the mind. And I would do it by not talking about it. I would just do it. Serve them. I would serve them like my dad served me. I didn't ask a dime for my time. I just asked them to pay it forward. I wanted to do that because I didn't want to say that my time wasn't valuable. It's that you can't afford it. It's priceless. I'm going to show you what it's like to have a fully capable, competent human being that's going to work his butt off for you. Your things are protected. Your relationships are protected. Your children are protected. Whatever you need, I will serve you like you've never been served before. How can I help you? I recorded all my plans on a GoPro because otherwise this concept is difficult to believe and impossible to prove. See, I believe that people can thrive in modern society by living in a constant state of giving. When a friend mentioned the name Serf Bliss, I thought that it was cool because being a serf was how people survived for centuries, by giving more than they took. I wanted to repattern my own mind in the process, and the goal was to attain bliss. So I called this journey Serf Bliss. Change the environment, step 4. That is the easiest when you're trying to change the relationship with another person, with my father. I mean, it's consistent. He had to remove himself when he was angry. I couldn't work around him anymore. But to change my relationship with other people, I had to make it constant, constantly be changing, constantly new. Otherwise, I would fall into some pattern to where I'd try and rest on my laurels and be LA cool guy. The guy that was involved with plastic surgery that had all these nice things. Because I became someone that I wasn't proud of. And I wanted to destroy that. And if I destroyed everything, that which is indestructible, the good stuff, would survive. And that's the only things that I needed to carry with me anyway. So on April Fool's Day, gave everything away. The only things that I kept were my car, a toolbox, bag of clothes. The same things I came into LA with was the only thing I was leaving with. 10 years to the day. Why? Because it was cool. It was cool to me. For the first time in my life, I'm playing for an audience of one. The best I could do of what my highest self would tell me, that's what I was doing. That's what I was accountable to. And instead of facing the entire United States, my adult mind couldn't handle it. It was short-circuiting. The anxiety, I chewed up the insides of my cheeks and it hurt when I ate, and people would have me go out for Mexican food. It was like, no, not hot salsa. I dropped down to 160, 150, around there. Very skinny as I've ever been. And so instead of facing this as an entire country, it became my game board. And and the little boy in me got to finally play. For the first time in my life, I never got to play. My nickname was Bubba. And the adult in me said, Bubba, for 1 year you get to play. What do you want to do? And I was like, I want to serve. I like it. And all I have to do is find one person in every state. That's easy to do. There's a lot of people in every state. Like, this is easy. So as long as Bubba controlled the little kid in me that still believed in saving the day, that still believed that he could make a difference, as long as he was at the helm, it was fine. It was releasing that control of Beck, LA guy, to Bubba, the person I've ignored for decades. The person that was worthless. And I had to say, to my inner child, no, you're priceless, you're worthless. Even if it costs everything in my life, yeah, go play for a year. Go do that. Because I certainly can't handle it. I drove up the coast, left LA, stopped by my uncle's house to share what I was doing. And he said, "That is the stupidest idea I've ever heard." The heartbreaking thing was, we were at that uncle's house when I told him about my dad about the suicide attempt. And I went by to him to say, "Hey, I want to honor you. You helped my dad change him and how to repattern the way he treated me, and changed my life. And I'm doing this journey and I want to honor you as this first stop." He's like, "I want no part of it. You're a charlatan." I looked up what charlatan meant, because I'm like, really? Yeah, it means what I think it means. And this was my family. It made me doubt if humanity was good. I was testing God, my concept of God. I was testing myself, my willpower. I was testing humanity. And I thought, if this is where humanity is, this is failing. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going the distance. Come hell or high water, 1 year, I will either make it or die trying. I was driving across in Oregon. I don't know where I was going, who I was going to serve, just that their zip code had to be in Oregon. Fortunately, a friend of mine from college connected me with her brother in Bend. Now, typically, I didn't know where I was going until a day or two before I got there, because I wanted to keep the process organic and fluid. I quickly learned that the best way to choose people was to separate myself, my mind, from the process, and I used the 6 degrees of separation. I served Tennessee, helped stain his deck, and helped him write a speech. He thought it was cool, and he set me up with his buddy in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, who helped plan the 20th anniversary of a heart transplant. He set me up with a coworker of his in Maine who gifted my time out to the community, and I helped repaint her friend's mobile home, and I helped different nonprofits. She set me up with her cousin in Rindge, New Hampshire, and his best friend died by just coincidence when I walked in the door, and I got to help him grieve. He set me up with his cousin in Wilmington, Vermont, who the flood came through and wiped out the infrastructure of the town. And so she said, "Hey, stay here. Give your time to these people that are still rebuilding, because everyone else came in and they've forgotten and we still need help." Most of the people that I served were complete strangers. I served Democrats, Republicans, people that don't believe in voting, served Christians, atheists, Catholics, pagans, different races, ethnicities, young, middle-aged, old, married, single, divorced, gay, straight, undecided. I wanted Surf Bliss to be so broad that labels didn't apply, and the project became human. People ask me, like, how do you afford this? And I tell them, well, I do donation-based massage. When I first started off on the journey, I had to break myself of the rate that I deserve, the money that I deserve for my time. So I told all my friends, this is limited time. I will do body work for you for whatever you donate. And then I had this one person, "Oh, here's enchiladas." I was like, perfect. That's perfect. I needed to just have my work be traded for these enchiladas. They are awesome. I also was given earrings. It's like, gave them to a friend. The rest of the donations, they were used for car insurance, cell phone, and gas. By state 4, I had $120 to my name. And I believed that by accomplishing this with no savings, sponsors, or financial safety net, that it would prove that anyone with a skill, a babysitter, a carpenter, an accountant, anyone can do this too. Now, I had all these plans set up, and I had money set aside. But all of my plans, the reason why I say state 4, is because everything was destroyed by State 4. The money that I set aside, there were things, expenses that came up that I couldn't control. And on State 4, I was offered a production, associate producing gig. My friend said, hey, come back to LA. And it was this carrot of money and security. And it was, do you truly believe? And I analyzed my finances in that moment. And it was either do or die. If I didn't go for it and believe in myself, and if the guy walking down the street who saw me, who energetically connected, and now that's right now where that's new for me, but I know a lot of you, that's where you connect. To put yourself out there, wherever your pull is saying to go, to have the strength to cut certain ties. I have been honored beyond whatever I could conceive by being invited here. You have honored me by coming up to me, your smiles, the way you greet me. My family rejected this, not my mom. My mom's awesome. But to feel the transition, and the only thing that I did is I kept doing the work. The rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. I had all of this planned in a certain way, and some of it's going in that way and some of it's not. But earlier today, we were out in the hallway, and I told Carolyn about a situation I had with my father. And I realized that I was still connected. I was still trying to bring him along with me. I wrote this book to help people. And in part, it was to convince him, hey, Dad, you did great work. I don't feel that anymore. You don't have to feel the depression, all these things that you're clinging to. You don't have to feel that anymore. I was invited to speak to a military unit, and I invited my dad to share the stage with me because I wanted the message to impact these people and them to share like how this process truly has repatterned me as a human being. I don't even recognize myself when I look in the mirror because I used to be ashamed of the person I saw, and I'm not anymore. A little bit of a fist bump every once in a while. But again, the only reason that happens is because I kept doing the work. I didn't resist it. And you can only do what you know. And when something comes up and someone calls you on something, then you have to take that action. Because your beliefs, everyone talks about, I believe this, I believe that. And a lot of times, growing up in the church, even saying, God told me this, and I believe that, and you look at the life, and it's like, those are words. Beliefs, it starts thought, then word, then action. If you have action, you have nothing. If you don't have action, you don't have anything. In fact, don't even speak until you have action. Because that gives you a pseudo sense of accomplishment that you haven't earned. And I can tell you that if you do the work, if you continue on it, whatever's pulling at your heart, it will transform you beyond your wildest dreams. The Surf Bliss journey transformed my heart and mind. I got to feel how connecting and having small acts of human kindness connects other people to do the same, and how the smallest act will transform a collective destiny. And I'll end with this. The most meaningful, because I always get this question, the most meaningful experience that I had was in Ohio. This woman said, when I asked, how can I help you? She said, can you take my sons fishing? And at first my mind went off and I was like, I'll go to Google, I'll learn all these lessons, what the different fishing holes, and I thought, no, turn that off. Why why do they need fishing? Why do you need me taking fishing? I was like, well, their father promised a fishing trip and never followed through with his word. And I said, okay, why didn't he? He said, he jumped into a trash compactor and killed himself. And so then I realized, by turning off my mind, he didn't want me to teach fishing. He just wanted me to stand and hold that space with their kids. She just, a couple days ago, there was a Facebook Memories, I love Facebook Memories, came up with that picture, and I said, this is one of the most beautiful moments of my entire life. And then she responded, James, you'll never know how you transformed our life. And what did I do? I took 2 boys fishing. You'll never know how you'll transform someone's life if you do the work, put yourself out there, follow your heart with reckless abandon, without hesitation or resistance. My goal at the end is to encourage other people to do this. My passion is to convince them that they can repattern their own mind. I want to pay forward the transformation that I received. And that's my story. If anyone has questions, feel free to fire away. Yeah. Oh, Mike, same rules. Not my rules, her rules. House.
I really want to say, wow. Really, wow. Stunning talk. Stunning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
I live in Utah, and I'm surrounded by Mormons. So if you ever come again, look me up.
Okay.
Second, how long did it take you?
Exactly 1 year. I left April Fool's Day, 2011, April Fool's Day, 2012. I actually finished without a minute to spare. The last day of service ended, and the next day, and April Fool's Day is my birthday. So,
What did you do April 2nd?
I sat on a couch for 1 month. I didn't need any stimulation. After this whole process, it was like, I need to repair. Start building everything back up again.
Did you meditate every day?
Repeat the question.
Did I meditate every day? Pretty much. I drove 22,000 miles. I never turned on my radio. I used that time to, and I mention it in my book, my dad loved to ride his motorcycle and have the wind blow through his hair and hear the asphalt under the tires. Me doing this journey, my father hitchhiked across the country with less than $1 in his pocket. And so for me, part of the planning of this is, how do I outman the man? And so, all right, you're going to do that? Here you go, Pops. So in meditation, every time I could fit it in, sometimes when I was in Florida, I pressure washed a villa for a girl's wedding, and I had to work like 13, 14 hours a day in order to get ready on time, and I got a respiratory infection because of it. So on those days, I think service is a level of meditation, because it was meditating, doing that giving. So yes, I did.
Did you ever get exhausted, just want to crash somewhere, sleep, just take a day off?
Did I ever get exhausted? Yes. I faced the greatest betrayal of my life on this journey. I was friends, people that say you can count on me, you go out on a limb to be there, and then the limb breaks. I had people that said, come, New Jersey, come stay here. I was en route there, and they said, oh, hey, could you come in a couple weeks? We're busy and I'm like, did you even look at my website? Did you know that, like, I'm en route to your house, I have nowhere else to go. And I had to drive a state over. Did I get exhausted? Yeah, but that was part of it. Like willpower, like, who am I? Anyone can sustain anything for a year, but to do it and to ignore that exhaustion and push through it.
What if you were just like, I have just got to sleep for a couple days?
One of the ways that I set up the journey is every 5 to 7 states, what I call a tent pole, to where I knew the person. So 40% of the people I knew, 60% were strangers, so people didn't think I was just hanging out with my friends. But every 5 to 7 states, I'd make sure there was a friend, so if I needed to edit videos, just relax, it wouldn't be a taxation on a new relationship. Yeah.
James, how did you approach people you didn't know to offer that service?
How did I approach people I didn't know? I had hosted people with couch surfing, and I had never actually done it. So I had a good reputation.
What?
Couchsurfing.com. It's a way that you can let people stay on your couch. And, huh?
Never heard of that.
Why would someone do that?
Millions of people do it all over the world. Couchsurfing.org. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And you can filter people. You can filter people.
What?
Yeah.
I got it when someone was at my couch.
But and so what I would like to do, so people coming from other countries, and I would look up their profiles to where you can vet them, make sure they're safe, and they weren't just, people looking for free rent. So I wanted to, and I lived in LA, so I wanted to meet people, and it was just a way to connect and have a little community and broaden it, meet people I'd never meet. So I'd had people come in, so I had a good reputation. In order to vet, I wanted to have certain states to where I had absolutely zero connection to. And I used that to filter it, because I didn't want to invite crazy in. Even though some of it filters in anyway. It's like eBay, that 98.5, as long as you got there, you're going to get like at least 1.5 crazy. Couchsurfing.org, yeah. It'll blow your mind all over the world. There's places to stay all over the world for no money. And that was one of the inspirations, is by, my journey is not a new one. It's the oldest one in the book. There's nothing new about what I did. All I did was use a camera to capture it, to what my experience was, because me being a storyteller and not wanting to embellish things, because our mind plays tricks on us. I wanted to have it captured in video, so if I said something and someone said BS, I would be able to pull that footage and actually prove it, and prove me wrong if need be. Because the video footage, I don't lie. But, anyone else? Yes?
So, since you've been reprogramming your thought patterns, is it done? Is it finished, or are you still,
Is the reprogramming finished? I think the rinse and repeat part, you take the most difficult step first, and then you take the next most difficult step, which is to say, and you keep doing that, and you get to where you're sprinting in the dark, and you get comfortable with that, and your eyes get adjusted. There are certain things you don't know, and you don't know that you don't know, and so big stuff sometimes comes up and slams you, but fewer and farther between. But when you're in a mode of enjoying that change, even it's still hard. It's still like, realizing that I need to detach from my father, that I'm too attached still, and that even after what I've done, that my dad intentionally puts me down, and I let that affect me because I'm trying to control him. Like, taking that on after I wrote that book. Even though the book and the work that he did is legit, and it did transform me. But it's honoring the good in a person and allowing them to have their journey. So that was something that I just learned today. So does it ever end? It doesn't ever end. But you get these cool insights like you get with archetypes, with learning as you grow, and then you just become a fuller person. Yes?
Is there, as you were talking, it was almost like I was experiencing you like a modern pastor.
Huh.
Like, and the full circle. I am so sorry, but
No, no.
I didn't ask the question, but I was sitting here and I thought, it's really quite beautiful how it's like how what's her fabulous name over there, Carolyn, talking about the modern mystic and how the traditional pastor and those whom have suffered through religious suffering, you know what I mean, attachments to different cultures, like I'm Canadian and natives and all that stuff,
Mhm.
right? So I'm watching you and the transformation of the modern, I don't know, just do you get what I'm saying?
I do get what I'm saying. It's funny because
Kind of beautiful.
my wife actually told me, make sure you don't sound like a pastor. So funny that you would say that. I don't, my dad was a preacher, and having that flavor, it's a bittersweet thing, but I guess the biggest thing is trying to be honest in it, just trying to provide value, and that's a pattern that was programmed in me.
Right, those skills.
Well, thank you.
And then you step into that
Yeah.
with your own mastery, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that. It really was, I was really wrestling with how to provide value, because I still struggle with that. You look at me at where I am now. I look at me starting at the chubby kid that couldn't tie his shoes, going through the kid that was yelled at, going through the kid that never tried out for anything, going to the kid that then tried out for stuff and started doing, have these different wins. To get here, just like to get where you're at to a place, there's still work to get there. But I guess I have to say, the less of those hooks you have inside of you, the quicker you get there and the easier you get there.
Wherever there is. It keeps moving.
Yeah, I mean, and it should. It keeps evolving. It keeps.
There is as inner as it is outer, but speaking of there, I am now going to move James to the back of the room because I think he should do a book signing.
Yes.